A lot of people think that science only consists of doing experiments or solving problems about anything that can make life an easy game. However, before playing a game, the most reasonable thing to do is learn about its rules, which is the other side of analytical science that many people neglect, but is in fact something that we experience in our daily lives, and that is exactly what game theory is all about. So first, let me explain what a game is. In game theory, and as introduced by mathematician John Nash, a game is an interaction between multiple people in which each person's payoffs is affected by the decisions made by others. And to show how much game theory is wide-ranged, it is actually used by economists, politicians, biologists, military tacticians, psychologists, and this is just to name a few. It has two major branches, cooperative and non-cooperative, also known as competitive game theory, which will be our topic of discussions due to the vastness of each of them. This type of game theory covers competitive social interactions, where there will be some winners and some losers, and as an example for this is the prisoner's dilemma, being probably the most famous example and as introduced as such. We have two criminals, let's call them Tom and Victor. These two were caught and were taken to interrogation where the rules of the game were introduced. If both of them confess, they will both get 4 years in jail each. If Tom chooses to confess while Victor doesn't, then Victor gets 7 years in jail, while Tom will only spend 1 year, and vice versa. And if none of them chooses to confess, they will both get 2 years in jail each. Under normal circumstances, the option in which both of them doesn't confess is the most optimal solution. But rationally thinking, these two people are criminals, they have no obligation to trust each other, so they can just stab each other in the back. And here comes game theory into play, specifically talking about Nash equilibrium, which is a key concept in game theory. A player has found Nash equilibrium when they make the decision which leaves them better off no matter what their opponents decides to do. With that being said, the most suitable solution for Tom is to confess, which makes sense, since either way, if Victor chooses not to confess, then he will only spend 1 year, thus making him a winner. Same thing applies if Victor chooses to confess, then Tom will spend only 4 years rather than 7. And this is game theory's solution for both of them to choose to confess. In conclusion to how competitive game theory works, when you're competing with others, it only makes sense to choose the course of action that benefits you the most, no matter what everyone else decides to do. In other words, game theory teaches you to be smart. And whether it is politicians opposing ideologies, or just teenagers competing against each other, competitive game theory is always present, which means that there are winners and losers in any competitive situation. And although it seems like a negative thing, it is actually how we human beings are, and how this concept even came to be. So rather than competing against each other for our own selfish benefits, we should compete against each other for humanity's own benefits.